I'm an intuitive health medium, and I want to talk about medical diagnosing and how that works energetically with manifesting. The physical symptoms that you're feeling that eventually result in an overall diagnosis of an illness that actually manifests from energetically trapped stress and trauma and suppressed emotions. Now, what happens when you get those symptoms, right? We mask them. If we get a headache, we take aspirin. If we get an upset stomach, we take a Tums. We change what we're eating. We try different modalities, right, to mask those physical symptoms. The physical symptoms are actually trying to tell us where we have suppressed emotions and that we're out of alignment energetically. Now, with manifesting, what we speak is what goes out to the universe, but that also applies to how we react, how we act, and how we adapt to our environment. That also applies to how we manifest, and it also applies to how our body manifests illnesses. Stress, trauma, and suppressed emotions are disease. Here's where I'm going with this. When you go to the doctors after you've been fighting all these different symptoms and trying to treat them and mask them with different treatments, whether it's over the counter or prescriptions, the minute the doctor says, you have this, and they diagnose you, and you receive that, that's exactly the illness that will come to you. Now, if we're not living a healthy quality of life and we're making poor health decisions, that's one thing. But even still, where in the physical body those illnesses manifest, it still resonates with energetically trapped trauma and stress. And the poor quality of life choices absolutely manifest from stress and trauma. Now, I was that runner who was training for her marathon, and I was told by a doctor that I would never run again. And I share this full story in my book called The Collision of Me. It's an incredible book, and it's a soul journey when you read it through how you resonate with the stories I share, because it's a variety of different stories. And I share about how I was told by a doctor that I needed surgery and I would never run again. The hip area resonates with money, financial stability, feeling safe in the home, basically having structure, which unfortunately, at the time of my injury, I did not have that, because about 5 months prior to my injury, which was about 3 months after I got married, I found out that my now ex-husband owed about $50,000 to the IRS and had credit card debt, repossessed cars, bankruptcies, all sorts of stuff on his credit. And unfortunately, he brought that into the marriage and financially devastated us from the day we got married to the day we got divorced. Running was absolutely my coping mechanism, because the more stress there was in my life, the more I ran it off. And while in the doctor's office after the MRI, the reason this injury did not take me out is because after having the MRI, him telling me that I had a stage 3 stress fracture in the femoral neck of my hip and that I had to have hip surgery, I looked him square in the face without stuttering. I said, you know what? I'm not going to receive that. I don't believe that's my diagnosis. I think I'm just going to go home and take care of this on my own. And his jaw dropped, and he was like, you need crutches. You can't even put weight on your hip right now. It's barely hanging on by a thread. And I said, that's all right. I'll figure it out. So I did take the crutches from him, but I did not use them. I went home. I put him in the basement. I went into my bedroom. I meditated. I talked to my hip. I said, hello, teacher. I hear you. What are you trying to teach me? What do I need to learn from this? Now, what ended up happening, because I didn't listen to the diagnosis, I listened to the injury and I complied. I listened to what my body told me, which was stop coping with things you can't control, such as the money. And I let go. And I called back my power, and I changed my life immediately by listening to my hip and everything that came to me in meditations. I did run my marathon 6 months later, but I also ended up doing another marathon. And then I did an Ironman triathlon less than a year after that injury. Now, an Ironman triathlon is a 2.5 mile swim, a 112-mile bike ride, and a 26.2-mile run on the end of it. I did 4 of those over the next year and a half, as well as other marathons. And I became more fit than I ever was prior to that injury. Now, what I'm trying to drive home here is there is data energetically stored in the area of the illness, the injury, or the issue that you have going on physically. The symptoms: headaches manifest from trauma, stomach aches, shoulder pain, neck pain, feet pain, plantar fasciitis, autoimmune disease, rheumatoid arthritis, cancers, Crohn's disease, IBS, celiac disease. Every single one of those, I have been able to connect to energetically trapped stress or trauma in a person's energy. And when you start listening to the data in your energy, you learn so much more about yourself and your body than you ever would from a diagnosis.